A little frustrating, I know, because we want all the pieces put in place, but we're happy to come back out, when we have those, and certainly present to you again when we have more information.
Sorry, I overlooked one during my last. In connection with the safe and supportive learning environment metrics, I guess, it looks like there are two that are being used for the accountability composite index score, and then when you look at the report card, there's a third. And I guess my question is, and I know that you addressed this a little bit in your initial presentation, but it seems to me as though there's a little bit of a disconnect between looking at something that creates whether or not there is a safe and supportive learning environment, and then just looking at sort of raw numbers about absenteeism and suspensions. And I was interested to hear whether there are other potential metrics under consideration that whether it's the committee of practitioners or the RIDE staff that are working on that are looking at on that side, and whether it's been discussed or considered that the survey about the way that people actually feel about their learning environment in the schools might be something that could be a part of the score that would lead to whatever the classification ends up being, as opposed to just being something that's reported on as part of the report.
Right. So in terms of the survey, it's a little difficult because we're never sure how many people will participate, whether it can be valid and reliable data, based on who participates, how many returns we get. So, we have talked about that, and we're working on, how to better use that data. Chronic absenteeism and suspension rates, are quantifiable in our system, and those are the things that sort of surfaced to the top when we talked to our different groups. But I'm sure there were others, I just don't have them at hand. But I can certainly maybe send them to Mario.
Okay, last question for myself anyway. Mrs. Campbell was asking a question. Back to the reporting out thing. You say report out to the federal government. Can you narrow that down a little bit? It's a big organization. Report out exactly to who?
To the Department of Education, the federal DOE.
That's what I figured. Okay, thank you.
Brian? No, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of places here under accountability system factors talk about high-quality educators, diverse educators who are well-prepared and qualified to meet student needs. And then a couple slides later, you also talk about under the absentee, chronic absenteeism, you're looking at that for teachers too. Does that mean that RIDE is looking to move towards some sort of statewide teacher contract that sets up standards for teachers? Or is that something that RIDE's looking at when they're starting? Okay. That's all I think.
I first want to thank you for coming here. I think you did an awesome job, and it's nice to hear the interaction with my peers here. I just have a couple of do these things get considered type questions.
Sure.
Because when I look at this and listen to the questions you've been asked, there's a lot of issue around the accountability and classifications and things of that nature. So I'm going to go to a little side bit from what Mr. Bradshaw does. When you're talking about attendance and chronic absenteeism, is there any discussion about how do you differentiate that? And for example, when you're talking teachers, if I have 3 teachers that are out for professional development during the school day, are they absent or are they there?
Right. So those are all considerations around that metric, and we really are being very thoughtful about issues just like that. Professional development would have to get backed out of chronic absenteeism, especially when districts require it. So that's and like I said, these are metrics that are recommended at this point, and I'm writing down your feedback, so I'll take it back to the office. But it is sort of a sensitive metric. I will say that, and we need to be very thoughtful about it.
Similarly, when you're dealing with students, because you're talking about their absenteeism and suspension, what do you do with the to differentiate that between a school system that suspends for almost anything and one that doesn't suspend for anything at all. Because if we are a system that suspends a child for hitting another one, that child's going to be absent. But if there's a school system over the bridge that does not do that, that student can act in that way and is still in attendance in the school. So how do you balance that with a safe environment versus the absenteeism?
Absolutely. So there are a lot of nuances around the metrics that we have to sort of work out. But I think the thinking is, you know, in broad terms, if you are a school that is suspending, you know, 40 fourth graders a year, that might be something that you want to take a look at. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's on both ends of the spectrum, we have to sort of be thoughtful about it.
You need to understand that I sit in a system that gets compared per pupil costs to other districts. In our district, we have to do maintenance and construction, and that becomes part of our per pupil cost, but in others they don't. So I don't like comparing an apple to an orange, and I'm just, that's the real question there. But
So I hope, I'm hoping, and I know that this doesn't always play out this way, but I'm hoping that whatever metrics we land on will be useful at the district level to make improvements, and at the school level in districts and schools. And, you know, as adults, we don't let it become comparing one to another. But I do know the reality of that, as I sat in the superintendency for a while.
So along those same lines, one of the other items that we get graded on, for lack of a better term, is graduation rate and things of that nature. So is there any discussion about adjusting for transfers? And I'll give you maybe an exaggerated example. Erin has a child in private school and is failing. So the private school tells her, get your kid out of here. We have to take that child. Now, when that child comes here and doesn't graduate from us, that goes against our graduation rate.
Right.
Shouldn't there be an adjustment that the kid spent 3 years at St. Phil's and didn't,
And that is a metric that you deal with right now. That's not a different metric. So I can't speak to that.
No, but I'm saying that there...
I understand your thinking.
Yeah, is there any discussion or any consideration given to the fact that a public school system can't choose their students? We get everyone that's thrown out of every place else?
That is part of this discussion now. That is part of this.
Okay.
Are private schools included in this?
Private schools are not included in this.
So they don't have to report on any of this,
They
so
do not.
it'll be a level 1 or a level 5 or whatever.
How about the charter schools? Are they part of this? Because they're similar in context. The student could get
That's right.
pushed out of a charter school and then we end up with that student. That is just an issue that changes our ratings just simply because they developed their habits someplace else and came here and we got graded for them. That's.
I appreciate that. I understand.
Listen, again, I want to thank you. I don't have any other questions, Brian.
Just one more, Mr. Chair, thank you. So how often is RIDE going to evaluate these metrics for efficacy? Are they going to be looked at yearly, every 2 years to determine? Yearly, they're
Yes.
going to be reevaluated to determine, hey, this isn't really telling us what we thought it would.
Oh, the
Let's
metrics
change it.
themselves? I don't know. That's a really good question. I will bring that up. I will bring that up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
But,
you.
Adam's not
Thank you.
done.
Oh,
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The last thing that I was thinking of as Mr. Chair and Mr. Bradshaw were speaking was whether in this process of looking at the metrics that we're evaluating the school districts, and maybe not necessarily the individual schools themselves, is whether there was any discussion about looking at outcomes in the years after graduation in attempts to measure the how kids from Bristol Warren are doing, or how kids from any individual district are doing in terms of success after their time in school, as opposed to so that whether as a measure of whether they're being successful in the first place, or perhaps as a measure of whether the metrics that we're looking at are actually telling us what we want them to tell us. Is that something that's being discussed in this process?
That's a great question, and it actually has been discussed, but the data that would support that kind of a metric is not available. We don't track that data, and we don't have a trackable system right now, but it certainly has come up in discussion.
Anyone else? Again, Mario, you all set? Right. Again, I just want to thank you, Carol. It was awesome to have you here.
Thank you. I
We appreciate your time coming down to enlighten us and fill us in with what's going on.
I'm just so happy to be with the school committee again. It feels so normal to me. So I appreciate your time and your thoughtfulness too. And if you think of anything, you know, you can send Diane, Mario an email, and they can send it to me, or you know, you can go right on the website, fill out that survey, or call us back and we'll come back. Thank you.
Well, thank you again for coming. I believe, by the way, that is, you know, all we have on our agenda tonight. I've heard 3 motions to adjourn. Choose one, Karen. Yeah,
I'll second it.
and a couple of seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.